They told me he left for school. England, Oxford specifically. A place I couldn't even pronounce when I was 15. A place I could barely imagine, except for the way it sounded when his mother said it. Sharp, clipped, like a knife being cleaned. He left in the spring. I remember that because the trees on the estate had just started to bloom, and I had a new pair of shoes that didn't quite fit yet. I was breaking them in when he walked past me on the drive with his trunks and his hat, and that stiff, aching silence that meant goodbye without the mercy of the word. He didn't say it. Not then. Not when it mattered. I stood by the east fountain and watched the carriage rattle off toward the main road. Mrs. Virginia Langston stood beside me. She didn't look at me. Her face was turned so precisely toward the gravel I could see the veins in her neck twitch. "He needs structure," she said. "Men need mentors, travel, the right influences." I nodded because I didn't know what else to do. I was 15, the maid's daughter, raised beside her son like a pet someone forgot to kennel. My mother had been the housemaid for the Langston family since before I could form words. We arrived at the estate when I was just 3. She came for work. I stayed because, eventually, I became part of the fabric, a girl who knew how to stay quiet, stay close, stay out of the way. They said they loved me. I think they did. But love like that has rules, fences. And when I turned 15 and the air between me and Calder started to shift, when he looked at me for just a moment too long in the drawing room mirror, when he stood closer than necessary in the corridor, she noticed. And a week later he was gone. They told me he left for school, but that wasn't the truth. The estate hasn't changed much in 10 years. The garden has grown in paces it shouldn't, the hedges are a little wilder, the gravel makes the same sound underfoot. I no longer live in the main house. When I turned 17, I was moved to the back quarters with the rest of the staff. It wasn't said cruelly. They thanked me for being so helpful, so quiet and mature, but they didn't look me in the eye when they said it. I think Mrs. Langston hoped I'd leave altogether, marry someone from the village, start a life far enough from theirs that her son's name wouldn't come up in conversation. I didn't leave. I stayed, because this was my home, because the walls here remember me, because the hallways don't echo quite right when I'm away, because I still believed one day he'd come back. And now he has. My mother is still here too. Slower now, but steady. She manages the linen room and keeps to herself, the way she always did. Sometimes I wonder if she ever knew what happened that spring, if she knew why Mrs. Langston changed her tone with me, but if she does, she's never said. I hear about his return before I see him. Word spreads through the kitchens, carried on the handle of a silver tray. "Calder's returned from England," someone says. Returned, like he had simply gone to post a letter, like 10 years hadn't passed, like I hadn't built and buried 1,000 versions of him in my memory. I carry linens through the hallway. My arms are full. My heart feels fuller. It shouldn't. Not after all this time. He won't remember me, I tell myself. He won't notice. He won't look at me like that again. The corridors feel smaller than I remember. Or maybe I'm just taller now. The window panes have new drapes. The floors are cleaner. But everything still hums with the same tension, like the air is bracing for the first storm of summer. I slip through the servants' wing toward the east stairwell, thinking I might catch a glimpse of him through the banister rail, and I do. He's standing in the vestibule with his coat still in hand. His hair is longer, fuller, but still slightly unruly. He doesn't wear a hat, and he never did unless someone made him. His shoulders have grown into something broad and sure, and his posture is less like a boy who forgot his Latin, and more like a man who's fought to earn silence. He doesn't see me, but I see him. And for a moment, just one fractured breath, I swear the world folds in on itself. My knees forget their job. My fingers squeeze too tightly around the stack of linens. My body remembers something I didn't give it permission to recall. Then someone calls his name. The butler, sharp and formal. "Mr. Langston, Calder turns, and I see it. His eyes flash upward, past the grand staircase, toward the banister, toward me. Only for a second, but it's enough. The linen slip from my arms. They scatter like petals on the floor. I bend to gather them before anyone sees, before she sees, because if she knows he saw me first, she'll find a way to make sure it doesn't happen again. And this time, I won't survive the silence. The linens were still warm in my arms when I backed away from the banister. I didn't look to see if he followed me with his eyes. I didn't have to. My hands were shaking for the rest of the day. It wasn't the kind of tremble you can explain away with the weather or fatigue. It was the kind of trembling that starts in the centre of your chest and works its way into your fingers like a fever. And once it finds you, it doesn't leave. I folded cloth napkins for 2 hours just to give my hands something to do. Mother didn't say anything when I fumbled with the silverware in the dining room. She just moved quietly beside me, replacing what I dropped the way she always had. Her silence wasn't cold, it was just enduring. The way linen endures, even when you bleach it one too many times. He looks like his father. My mother finally broke the silence as we arranged Crystal for a dinner that didn't need to be that formal. I didn't respond. My mother doesn't speak often, and when she does, it isn't for conversation. It's a tether. A truce she tosses towards me in case I'm drifting too far from it. I didn't expect to see him again that night, not with the formal dinner scheduled, and his mother undoubtedly surrounding him with people who made her feel more secure. But after the meal, as I was helping clear the upper corridor, I heard footsteps behind me that didn't belong to staff. He was standing at the end of the hall, alone. Calder didn't say anything at first, just leaned against the wood-panelled wall like he was waiting for something, or someone. I tried to walk past him. My heart tried to stay behind. "Marigold!" My name on his tongue still sounded like a question. I stopped, turned halfway toward him. He looked at me the way someone might look at a place they used to know. Familiar, careful, as if afraid to break it. "You're still here?" His voice was soft, but steady. "So are you." I don't know why that came out sharper than I meant it to. Maybe because his presence made me feel like someone had peeled back every layer I'd built just to keep breathing. He smiled, barely, but I felt it. "I didn't think you would be." I lifted my chin. "That makes 2 of us." He moved closer, slowly, but not too close. Not yet.
"You haven't changed."
"Neither have you." That wasn't true. He had changed. He had grown into his height. His face had angles now, a strength to his jaw that hadn't been there before. But the eyes were the same. Not in colour, but in clarity, as if they still held the weight of things he wasn't allowed to say. "Does my mother know you're up here?" Something flickered in his expression, the briefest shadow.
"She doesn't control all my steps."
"No," I said quietly, "but she chooses which ones get remembered." It hung there between us, that old thing, the thing neither of us had the right words for. "You should go," he nodded slowly, like he understood that part of me hadn't grown up at all.
"Will you be at Sunday supper?"
I shook my head. "I'm usually in the back rooms."
"Maybe you shouldn't be."
"And maybe you shouldn't ask questions with answers you already know." I didn't wait for his response. I turned and left him standing there, alone in the hall we used to race through as children, but my hands didn't stop shaking until long after I closed my bedroom door. I woke up to the sound of rain tapping against the glass. Not the kind of storm that demands attention, just a soft, steady curtain of water. The kind that drapes the whole house in grey and makes the world feel smaller, quieter. I pulled the shawl tighter around my shoulders and stayed still, a moment longer than I should have. Sundays, ordinarily, were always the same. Early breakfast, service at the estate chapel, supper in the grand hall, and me, folded somewhere in the background, like a well-worn page in a book no one reads aloud anymore. I didn't expect Calder to show up in the morning parlour, certainly not before the rest of the family had even come downstairs. He was standing near the fire, jacket off, sleeves pushed to his elbows. He looked like someone who belonged in paintings, not because he was posed, but because he wasn't. There was something unguarded in the way he stood, rubbing a small cloth across the condensation on the window pane, like he couldn't decide if he wanted to see out or keep the world from seeing in. I paused in the threshold, hands full of fresh linen. He looked up.
I forgot how loud the rain can be in this house.
I stepped in, carefully. The roof's always leaked near the south end. Grandmother says it's sentimental, the original beams from the first build. She wouldn't let them replace it, even when the workers offered. Said not everything old needs fixing, just someone to remember it matters. Hasn't been fixed in years. He looked toward the corner, where a silver bowl had been placed beneath the drip. A single, slow plink echoed through the room.
Some things really don't change.
I started arranging the table. Some things are too far gone to change. He turned to face me fully.
Is that what I am now? Too far gone?
I didn't answer. I didn't look up. My hands found the spoons, the napkins, the gentle symmetry of tasks I'd done since I was old enough to reach the table. Calder stepped closer. I asked Grandmother about you last night. I paused. What did she say? That you stayed. That you grew up kind. That she doesn't understand why your mother never needed a reason. He didn't argue. He ran a hand through his hair, a flicker of discomfort crossing his face.
And I didn't want to assume. God knows I've imagined you gone 1,000 different ways. I just never let myself hope you'd still be here.
The silence grew long enough that I heard my heart beat in it. Rain, breath, memory. Why didn't you write? I asked, before I could stop myself. He exhaled hard through his nose. Because I wasn't allowed to, and by the time I could, I didn't think you'd want to hear from me. I smoothed a napkin that didn't need smoothing. You thought wrong. He took another step.
Would it have changed anything?
My voice dropped. It would have changed everything. We stood in it. That truth. So big and quiet, it felt like the room bowed around it. His voice broke the silence first.
I didn't want to come back here.
Then why did you?
Because it's the only place that ever felt like home.
He looked at me then like he was remembering something. Something he hadn't let himself miss until just now. I should go, he said, voice low. I nodded. Your mother's probably waiting. He turned to leave, then paused at the door. You looked at me like that once. The day they sent me away. I didn't speak. I never forgot it. The door closed behind him, but the echo of his words stayed longer. I placed the last spoon. Then I sat down in the chair he'd just vacated and let the rain fill the silence he left behind. The Langston estate didn't used to feel this big, but I walked it now like a stranger, as if the years had stretched the halls longer, widened the distance between rooms. I passed the gold-framed portraits that lined the grand stairwell, the faces of men who'd made fortunes in railroads and oil. Your eyes followed you. Or maybe it only felt that way, when your name didn't belong beside theirs. I paused at the study door. It was ajar, the scent of cigar smoke and damp wool still clinging to the air. Calder's father used to sit there after supper, reading the Times and drinking black coffee long after the rest of the house had gone still. Now that room sat waiting. For him. He didn't go in. I slipped down the side corridor, out of sight before he could follow. I didn't want him to see me hesitating. I didn't even know why I was lingering. Maybe I was trying to remind myself this was still home, even if it hadn't felt that way in years. The rain tapped lightly against the tall windows, and through them I could just make out the new garage, where that sleek silver car sat, the one Virginia had insisted on, the 1899 Benz, 8 horsepower Renvalen. Calder had said the mechanics didn't trust it, but she said it made the family look modern, progressive. I passed the solarium quickly, hoping to reach the garden before he caught up, but I didn't make it. You always liked this spot, Calder said softly behind me. I didn't turn right away. I was sitting beneath the arbour, book open in my lap, though I hadn't read a word of it. It was just something to hold, something that kept me from folding in on myself. "It's quiet here," I murmured. He sat beside me, not close, but not far either. His hand came to rest near mine on the bench. I felt the pull of it even without looking.
"You're the only one who called it a garden," I said. "Everyone else calls it the chapel grounds. You gave it a name."
It needed one.
A pause passed between us, heavy,
Full of everything we hadn't said for 10 years.
"They told me you'd be back to take over," I said. He looked straight ahead.
They made it sound like an honor.
"Isn't it?" He let out a breath.
You ever inherit a cage, Marigold? Doesn't matter how polished the bars are.
I didn't smile, but the bitterness in his voice softened something in me.
Railroads, oil, now automobiles. My mother says I'm the future.
"And what do you say?" He turned to look at me. "I say, I'm not sure I want to be." I closed the book in my lap. It made a soft sound between us. "You didn't come back just for the company." He shook his head.
I didn't.
"Then why?" His eyes met mine, and I felt the breath catch in my chest. He looked at me like he used to, like I was more than just the maid's daughter, like I was the only secret he'd never confessed.
Because the only time I was ever sure of anything in my life was when I was 13, and you smiled at me like I wasn't my name.
My pulse skidded. "You shouldn't say things like that."
Why not?
"Because I remember that boy too, and the minute I do, it hurts." His voice lowered, tender.
Then remember him with me, just for a minute.
I didn't move, but I didn't look away either. The chapel bell rang faintly in the distance. I stood before I could let it get worse, before I could hope too much. "They'll be waiting," I said. He rose beside me.
Marigold?
"Yes?" He hesitated.
Thank you for still being here.
I didn't answer, but when I walked ahead toward the house, I didn't walk as fast as before. Just before the path curved around the hedges, I glanced back, toward the arbour, the bench, the garden, and that's when I saw her. Virginia Langston, standing, half shielded behind the far columns of the solarium, her gloved hands folded neatly, watching. My breath caught. She met my eyes, lifted her chin, and turned away. The warmth drained from my skin, like the sunlight behind a cloud. For the first time since Calder returned, I felt cold again.
I used to think a heart breaks all at once, but the truth is, it breaks slowly, through silences, through smiles that don't reach the eyes, and it started with something small, a misplaced tray, a missed message, a glance held too long and excused too quickly. The morning after our conversation in the garden, I woke to find my usual responsibilities shifted. The silver I was meant to polish had been done already. The linens I'd collected were gone. Someone else had prepared the tea for the upper rooms. When I asked Mrs. Langston about it, she smiled, a tight-lipped, thoughtful smile, and said, "You've done enough lately, Marigold. Rest a while." But there was no rest in idleness, not when you felt the floor shifting beneath your feet. Later that day, I overheard her speaking to the housekeeper in clipped tones. She's sweet, but not suited for long-term placement, and now that Calder is back, well, it's best she isn't underfoot. Underfoot, that word, echoed like a stone dropped into water, wide ripples. Calder didn't know. I was sure of that. He was too busy reacquainting himself with the estate's dealings, touring the railway expansion, reviewing the oil ledgers, walking the grounds with his grandfather's old adviser. He didn't see how carefully his mother was redrawing the household, but I saw. The next evening I found him on the back lawn, with his sleeves rolled, speaking with the stable hand about the new engine carriage. When he spotted me, his expression lit, then dimmed. Not cold, but uncertain. "You've been busy," I said, trying to sound more curious than hurt. He smiled faintly, trying to remember who I'm supposed to be. "Don't let them tell you." He looked at me then, really looked, like he was about to say something important.
But from the far porch, Virginia Langston cleared her throat. Loud enough to carry, Calder straightened. His hand dropped from where it had been resting against the garden gate. "I'll see you at supper," he said. And just like that, the moment was gone. That night at dinner, I served Virginia last. I always did, and as I leaned toward her with the roast, she spoke without looking at me.
"The Devereux family is visiting next week. Their daughter, Evelyn, will be joining us. Lovely girl, very refined."
I didn't respond, but I could feel Calder watching me. She and Calder used to write as children. Did you know that, Marigold? I shook my head.
"Well, it's sweet,"
she continued, lifting her glass.
"That kind of familiarity is rare."
My hand stayed steady, but inside I felt something fray. Later that week, I went to collect the garden sheets from the line and found them already taken in. My name had been removed from the laundry schedule. My tasks kept changing, and I kept being moved, first to the lower wing, then to the attic room off the kitchen. They said the quarters were being restructured, but only mine changed. Even Mamma started noticing. "Maybe they're just adjusting," she said carefully one night as we folded linens. "It's a big house again with Calder back." But I knew better. The turning point came one morning when I came into the parlour to light the lamps and found Evelyn Devereux in Calder's chair. She was beautiful in that delicate, intentional way. Not a single strand of hair out of place. She laughed softly at something Calder said. He looked uncomfortable, but he didn't move away. Virginia watched from her usual perch near the fireplace, and when I turned to leave, she caught my eye and smiled. That night, I asked Mamma if she'd ever considered taking work outside the estate. She looked up sharply. "Why would you ask that?" I told her I just wondered what it would be like, someplace else, anywhere else. She didn't answer right away. Then she said, "Marigold, don't let anyone here make you smaller than you are. Not even them." But I already felt it happening, slowly, quietly, like walls closing in by the inch. I started keeping to myself more. I spoke less. I watched everything. And one evening, as I passed the south parlour, I heard Virginia's voice behind the door. "She's become a complication, Calder. I know you don't see it yet, but you will. A boy's affection isn't the same as a man's judgment. You need someone who belongs in your world." He didn't answer her, not that I could hear, but I didn't wait. I turned and left before the tears could fall. Just before the hallway curved, I glanced back toward the parlour, and I saw her again. Virginia Langston. Only this time, she wasn't watching. She was smiling. Some endings don't announce themselves. They slip in like shadows, unnoticed until everything is gone. The moment Evelyn Devereux arrived at Langston Hall, everything shifted again. This time it was quiet, precise, as if Virginia Langston had been rehearsing it for years. She began placing Evelyn beside Calder at every occasion. Tea on the terrace, horse rides at sunset, dinners that I now served from a colder distance. Evelyn laughed at his jokes. She tilted her head just so. She leaned in like she already belonged. But I had begun to see Virginia's games more clearly. One morning, I overheard a conversation between Mamma and Virginia in the cellar hallway. I hadn't meant to listen, but my name stopped me in my tracks.
"She's not thinking clearly,"
Virginia was saying.
"Grieving still, probably, and she clings to childish fantasies. Calder deserves a wife who elevates him. Evelyn is that woman."
My mother's voice was soft. "And if Marigold doesn't want the other man either?"
"He'll make her a respectable offer. It's more than she can hope for."
A few days later, a man named Thomas Bennett arrived at the estate. I remembered him. He had once worked with the railway surveyors. Kind eyes, a quiet smile. Nothing wrong with him, except that he wasn't Calder Langston. He walked with me once through the gardens, asked about the rose varieties, spoke kindly about my mother. Then, just as we reached the greenhouse archway, he said it plainly.
"I would like to offer you marriage."
I blinked. "I beg your pardon?" He smiled.
"Your mother said you might need time, but I wanted to be clear with my intentions."
My mouth opened,
but no words came, just a slow pounding in my ears. That afternoon I passed Calder in the corridor. Our shoulders nearly brushed. I turned, startled. His eyes locked on mine.
Congratulations.
But his voice cracked ever so slightly. I stared at him. On what? His jaw flexed.
On your engagement.
My breath hitched. I couldn't speak before another voice slithered in, Virginia's, sweet and slicing.
Calder, darling. Evelyn wanted to show you the new sketches for the expansion room. Do come.
He hesitated, but only for a moment, then turned and followed. The next morning he was gone. A business trip, the staff said, west to oversee a rail development deal. By dusk, so were we. Mamma and I packed quietly. We weren't asked to leave, not directly, but our room had been cleared, our duties reassigned, and then a letter came, suggesting her services were no longer required. We left before sunrise. No goodbyes, no explanations. Days passed. Then weeks, until one morning a letter arrived, from Grandmother Cora, written in a firm, familiar hand.
My dear girl, it is my birthday soon, and it would mean the world to see you. I know we have not spoken since you left, and I suspect there are things you do not understand. All I ask is that you come. There will be a gathering, nothing grand, just a few faces you remember. Calder will not be in attendance, he's away on business, so you needn't worry. Please come. Yours, Cora Langston.
But Cora's birthday was in spring, and it was October. I stared at the paper, the ink pressed so carefully. Her voice echoed in my mind, gentle and commanding all at once. I folded the letter slowly and packed my bag. I didn't expect to feel anything the moment I saw Langston Hall again, but I did. The estate gates stood taller than I remembered, like iron sentinels daring me to turn back. Beyond them, the drive curved like a spine toward the grand house, its windows glowing amber in the early evening light. Carriages lined the lawn, a few motor cars too. One in particular caught my breath. A sleek 1899 Benz 8-horsepower Rennwagen, gleaming under gaslight. I stepped down from the hired carriage, heart pounding like I was 13 again. A staff member took my bag, another guided me toward the main entrance, where murmurs and music spilled through open doors. This wasn't a birthday celebration, it was something else. Women in silk gowns and men in black tie attire mingled beneath chandeliers. The hall had been transformed, not into something unfamiliar, but into something grand. Calder's touch was everywhere, subtle, elegant, strong. I adjusted my gloves. My boots tapped softly on the marble. The letter had said he wouldn't be here, but I felt him in every corner. The housekeeper's eyes widened when she saw me. Her mouth parted as if to speak, but she only dipped her head and gestured toward the east wing. "The dining hall," she whispered. "They're just starting." I followed the soft hum of string instruments, past portraits I once dusted, past memories I had buried. When I reached the threshold of the room, I paused, and there he was. At the head of the long banquet table, Calder Langston stood in a midnight suit, his expression poised and unreadable. He was holding a glass, preparing to speak, and then he saw me. His words faltered, the glass lowered slowly. Every head turned, the chatter silenced. For a full breath, no one moved. Then Calder spoke, but not to me. "Excuse me," he told the guests, voice tight. "Please enjoy the music. I'll return shortly." He stepped down from the dais. I backed into the hallway, breath shallow. The silence behind me broke into murmurs. He reached me in 3 strides. "What are you doing here?" His voice cracked more than I expected. "I was invited," I said.
By who?
"Your grandmother. She said it was her birthday." He looked at me then. Really looked.
It isn't.
"I know." We stood there,
Still. The music behind us drifted faintly. I searched his face. I wanted to ask 1,000 things, but only one came out. Why did you never write? His jaw clenched. He stepped closer.
Because I thought you left with him.
With who?
Thomas.
My breath caught. You saw us walking, that's all.
You were smiling. He proposed, you didn't deny it, then you were gone.
Because your mother made sure we had nowhere else to go. His brows drew together. And what about Evelyn? I crossed my arms. What about her?
She told me you were marrying Thomas, that you accepted, that you laughed at my jealousy.
I swallowed hard. Your mother told mine that you proposed to Evelyn. Calder closed his eyes. A sound escaped his throat, somewhere between a laugh and a curse. When he opened them again, they were glassy.
She broke us.
No, I said quietly. She tried. We stood in silence, long enough for the music to fade. Then a voice cut through.
Calder!
Virginia Langston stood at the far end of the hall, face pale. He turned to her, slowly, as if something inside him had just broken clean.
Mother,
he said, and nothing else. She stepped closer, composed, until Calder held up a hand.
Don't. Not tonight.
And then he reached for me, not with his hand, but with his eyes. With a softness I hadn't seen since we were children in the orchard.
Come with me.
He led me back toward the hall, through gasps and stares and whispers. The music swelled as we entered. I realized I wasn't invisible anymore. I was about to be claimed. Calder stepped up to the head of the table again and raised his glass, though this time he didn't speak right away. The guests quieted. Then he began.
I prepared a speech tonight about mergers and legacy, about growth and markets and all the things a man is expected to speak of at a table like this. But something more important just walked through those doors.
Gasps soaked softly. My heart pounded. He turned to me, not with hesitation, but reverence.
This is Marigold, my childhood companion, my first friend, the only woman who has ever made this house feel like home.
Murmurs rippled.
Some of you came here expecting an announcement about business, and I will give you that. We are stronger than ever. Our growth in transportation, rail and oil and the new engines is unmatched. But power means nothing without truth.
He turned back to the crowd.
This family nearly lost her. I nearly lost her. Because of pride, because of lies, and because I was too much my mother's son when I should have been my own man.
I swallowed against the tightness in my throat. He looked at me again, eyes wet.
I am now, and if she'll have me, I want the world to know that Langston Hall is hers as much as it is mine.
Silence, then whispers, then applause. Calder reached out a hand to me. I stepped forward. He didn't kiss me, not yet. First, he dropped to one knee. Gasps. Virginia Langston collapsed into her chair. Cora smiled through tears.
Marigold,
he said, voice trembling.
You once told me I looked at you like you were everything. I still do. I always will. Will you marry me?
I couldn't speak. I just nodded. The kiss that followed was not for the room. It was for the years we lost, for the promises buried, and the orchard that never left our hearts. It was the end of a war, and the beginning of home.
Gates were tall, but I walked through with trembling hands and worn out truth. A name I whispered in the dark still burned beneath my silent heart. I saw your eyes before your storm held back a broken choice. The chandeliers reflected all our missing years. You said her name, I stood my ground. I wore the lies like wedding gowns, but every thread they wrapped in gold still couldn't keep the cold from home. It's the cold lies that break us, not the ones we speak loud. It's the hush beneath the ballroom. It's the shame we never showed. But even frost remembers spring, and even silence starts to sing. 1,000 steps, one trembling vow. You found your voice, I let you know. The crowd, the light, the weight of air. But all I saw was you right there. You named me home, I called you mine. The war we lost, the years, the time, still standing here in candlelight. Our ruin blooming into right. Let them clap and let them see. Let ghosts watch as you kneel for me. The past won't own what love rewrites. Not tonight, no, not tonight. Your hands shook soft, but still you stayed, like orchards blooming through the haze. And when your lips met mine again, the frost began to melt away. The kiss was quiet, but the sky bowed down to hear our long goodbye, to pain, to fear, to bitter doubt. The love they buried rose back out. It's the cold lies that break us, not the ones we say aloud. But love has ways of waking even hearts that weren't allowed. And in the hush, I heard you say, you are my home, you